Hi, it's Tracy. Welcome to my home here in Sussex, England, where we're going to be transforming the porch, or the veranda as I call it, using mainly things that I already have. Now I'm going to be bringing on colour. I am going to breathe new life into old pieces, and I'm going to show you how to transform a plastic planter into stone for outdoor use. And I had an idea for the planter, but I wasn't sure whether it was going to work. Wait till you see what I put in it. This is how we started, and if you want to see the cleaning and painting products that I used in order to make it super bright and white, it'll be at the end of the episode. Now let's jump on and get some colour. I made a couple of purchases. I have treated myself to a couple of things, but most of what I'm going to use is thrifted, it's old, it's going to be reused. I decided that actually I was going to put 2 rugs onto the veranda. I will link them down below. But in the meantime, let's do something for this corner, and we're going to round up the boys, Bertie and Bear, the furry supervisors, if you've not been here before, and we're going to make a start on the plastic planter. As you can see, this is a very old one. It's seen better days. At one stage, I did actually wipe some exterior paint around it just to lighten it. Now I'm really going to key the surface and give it a good wash down. And then I'm going to cover it in surface primer. So if you key the surface and then you put the primer on, you don't have to be careful with this. You can have runs in it. It doesn't matter because nobody's going to see it. It just makes the product that I'm going to put on stick more. I'm using up old grout that I used on the kitchen floor. Now, this is a coffee colour, so that might be interesting, but the most important thing is that it is designed for exterior. As long as you are using exterior products in this process, you won't go far wrong. The building sand is really there just to add a little bit of texture and to give more of a sandstone colour. There are no ratios here. I literally am making it up as I go along. I've probably put a little bit too much water in there, particularly as it's a very cold day. If it was a hot day, this is the kind of consistency that you would want. Now, when I'm applying it here, I'm not looking for perfection here. I'm not bothered about any marks because I'm going to sort all that out later. As it starts to dry, that's when I go in and start to pat and smooth things down. Always keep a bucket of water to rinse your gloves off, because you'll find if you get too much mix on your gloves, it will start to lift it off the pot. I always start upside down and then I flip over to finish off the top area. I am going to take it inside slightly to where naturally the soil line would be. It is a cold day, as I said, so I'm using a heat gun just to aid that drying. And as you see, as it's drying, you will see dark patches, lighter patches. It does lighten up as it dries. As natural stone has lots of different shades and colours in, I'm going to add some more. So this is masonry paint. I'm going to add a little bit more of the sand and also just an old pot. I mean, you can see how old this is, of a little bit of grey. You don't need a lot for this stage, so I'm just mixing it on the back of a lid. And I will just use the little scraper to really just gently move that product around all of the raised areas and then rub it in with a cloth. Looking to accentuate the texture here, I'm dabbing on a little bit more of the paint just to lift that a little bit more and just give a variation in colour. Now, we can do a little bit more. So I've got some very old black paint, little bit of water, good stir, nail brush, and flick, flick, flick. We're going to cover it in speckles to represent the natural porous holes that you see in stone. Now we're at the end of the day, so I'm going to sit the baby on top of the range overnight to let it dry, and then we'll bring it out onto the veranda. Now, you know I'm going to do something else with it. But before we do that, let's bring some furniture onto the veranda. I've got this big old sofa, £40 from a charity shop. Brought it out here last year. We loved it so much. It is staying. As are the two oak chairs that I've got that were found at auction several years ago. I've got this cheap old pine bookcase that I keep painting up lots of different colours. Perfect for out here. And my old kitchen table, which goes through lots of different transformations. This was last year's. And this wonderful little console table that I did a paint effect on last year. Now, let's go back to that big pot, and I'll give you a clue. I'm not filling it with compost. No, I've got a pipe. I'm going to put a pipe in it. Now, it's just a little bit too long for what I want to do. So I'm marking off the desired length. And then taking a saw, and I did struggle to get through this, so I did lots of one strokes pulling backwards, and that did the trick. Now, there are drainage holes in. I do not want things seeping out, so I'm popping some plastic in. It also protects the inside of the pot, which means whatever it is I'm going to do, I can take out again. And I'm going to add Postcrete. Now, this one is really, really old. I mean, I'm talking years old. I've also got some slightly newer one. These set within 5-10 minutes, so really super fast setting. I don't think I need all 3 bags, but we'll see how we go. Now, I'm holding the pipe and I've got my son tipping the mix in, measuring to make sure that that pipe is exactly in the middle, and then again holding it in position as the water goes in, and you just let it bubble through. I did add the old bag, so I only used 2 in total. We're going to leave that to set, and we're going to do some more makeovers. Now, I want to do a coffee table for the middle there, and then 2 side tables for these areas. And this is what we're going to do a makeover on. Now, I've had these tables for many, many years, several houses. I did use them last summer, and the paint has become very loose and flaky. I also have the round table. This was a proper table, and I cut the legs down and then did a wash over it and had it out on the veranda last year. But I fancy a change of colour. Now, the supervisors are in position, so I think we can commence. I loved the colour of the top as it was revealing itself, so I went all in and took the paint completely off along with the varnish. Now, I'm going to paint the bottoms, but let's just hop over to the table, give that a quick sand down, and then we're ready to start painting. And the colour of choice is olive. Chalk paint, Annie Sloan, always give it a really good stir. Delicious colour. As I'm going to use brushes on the 2 side tables, I'm just going to use brushes on this. And I always have a damp cloth with me when I'm painting. Side tables have just had 1 coat, and I think that's all they need. The table, I have put 2 coats on. Now, this is an optional extra. It's my personal taste. I like a distressed look, but I'm just going to tickle that sander head over the paint just to bring that grain through slightly. And then I'm going to seal the whole thing in Annie Sloan lacquer. This is a clear matte. You can get it in a gloss. I'm sealing the paint with the lacquer again, and I've put a couple of coats onto the top. Now it's time to reveal what is going into the pot. It is and I'm not going to use the C word, it is a tree. Okay, got that? It's a tree. This is my first sea tree, faux one, that I ever bought, and this was last year. Now, it's a little bit tight, that pipe, for the spike to go in, but I have a cunning plan. I have WD-40. I even have handbag size of WD-40. It's such a useful product. So I'm going to squirt it into the pipe, onto the spike, and with a bit of luck, this very heavy tree will slide in. Yes, gosh, that was a relief. It's really quite heavy. I'm not going to be lighting it up, so I've just left the plug in the pot. I'm bringing out the lower branches just to make sure that I've got enough space all the way around, and then I can continue to construct it. Now, as I don't want it to look like a tree you would use at the end of the year with a spike that you put a star and an angel on, I've bent it right over. And there you go, you have a summer tree. But we are not quite finished with the tree. There is another stage to come. And Bertie has an idea. What is it, boys? You want to take me somewhere? Where do you want to take me? This way. Okay, let's go and find out. The boys have brought me down to my storage shed. Now, this is just full of all my home decorating things that are mid-transition. They're just waiting for their next outing. It is slightly organized chaos in here. I do need to have a really good go at it, a really good sort through. Would that be something you'd be interested in watching? Not as a standalone video, but, in amongst another episode, let me know. Now, this is what Bertie was wanting me to find, these boxes. This is not full of hops, but they are the boxes that my hop binds came in last summer. Bertie, I know where you're going with this. You are a freaking genius, my darling. He's got me to pull out the hydrangeas. Now, I went a little bit overboard last year. I bought quite a lot of these. In my defense, they were amazing value. There are 7 heads on there, and they were just $9.99 each. So we are going to create my spring-summer hydrangea tree. Well, that's 4 boxes empty, and there are just 3 left. So I have used 33 of them because I believe I have 36 in total. It is rather large. It's now 8 foot tall, and I've had to use so much product because it can be seen from a couple of different rooms. So you've got to make sure that it's decorated all the way around, haven't you? I know, it's a bit bonkers, but we like bonkers here. And you know what? It just makes me smile. Now, shall we look at the size of that? Get some of this furniture back on. So the coffee table is dry. That is back on in the middle there, super size. Really pleased with that. And then into this area, we're going to pop one of those little side tables. Again, I just love the colour of them. And I'm so glad that I left that blonde wood on the top. My husband said, that's not your normal style. I thought, it might be going forward because my style is always evolving, always changing, which keeps it interesting for me and it keeps it interesting for you. Now I've just got one little table to pop in there, which is where I like to put my coffee on a morning. I've had this for so many years, so many makeovers. And then next to the hydrangea tree, I'm going to bring in my £5 chair that I found last year. Wicker chair. Absolutely love it. So comfortable as well. We just need to pop some chairs around the table. And then I think that is it for the furniture. Now it's the end of a day, so we're going to leave that there. Have a nice snooze. And here we go. Brand new day. My goodness, it's a frosty one. We are still getting lots of frosts here. And then it warms up as the day goes on. These are old placemats that I did a colour wash on one side of them. They were looking a little bit worse for wear, but it's breathed some new life into them. I've added a basket that I sprayed and I'm bringing out one of my faux palms. Now, I'm not giving it a box of chocolates. These are tubs from the Christmas chocolates that I pop some gravel in. I do this for two reasons. One, it elevates the pot, and two, it just gives a little bit of weight to that basket in case we get any winds. As we go through the dressing of the veranda now, I'm going to keep panning back to the hydrangea tree because it is such a big, bold statement. I've got to make sure that everything fits in. There's nothing too fiddly and little because it's just not going to work. Old packing material is fabulous for doing this type of thing. Always keep it ugly to look at. So we're going to cover it with bits of Hessian. I use Hessian all around my home. I love the texture of it and I also love the colour. Now the colour is also going to work with that sofa, with the blonde of the table and with several other things that I'm going to be bringing on. Now I'm going to do exactly the same over in this corner. It can sometimes get the wet here, the weather here, so I'm not going to use any of the shredded paper. I'm just going to use plastic. The next big feature I like to bring on at this stage is fabric. Fabric can make such a statement. So we're going to start down this end. I'm starting with the cushions that came originally with this sofa, and they have been used continuously. I just used the base cushions here. I have tried cleaning them. They're not as clean as I would like. I did consider using fabric paint, but by the time I costed it all out, actually, it was going to be far cheaper to do an alternative, which is what we're going to do now. This is a throw that I found at the range for just $15.99, and it's actually huge. It's 200 by 220 centimetres, 100% cotton, which means that when I get bored with it, I can dye it. I folded it in half with the tassels all the way along the longest side, and I'm just going to fold it around the cushions. I want to keep this scheme looking bright and summery. I don't want it slipping into those autumnal tones, which it could quite easily do. So this is a old throw that I found at HomeSense. I've used it for several years. These cushions are made from curtains. I made them myself. They were found in a charity shop for not a lot of money, and the fabric is really lovely quality. And of course, the colours that I'm using on the veranda are all picked up in the fabric, so it helps link the scheme together. Now, for the two chairs, I'm taking a cushion back and using it as a cushion base. Now, I haven't bought new throws for decorating outside for years. I normally just downgrade what was in the house, but this was found at the range as well. It was next to the one that I've just used on the sofa, and it is so soft, unbelievably soft, and priced so keenly. Now, I know my friends in hotter climes say, I can't believe you're bringing throws out in the summer. It gets chilly here. We really need them. Now, over to the table, and I'm going to put fabric on the table this year. I bought 2 of the big throws. And again, I've had to fold this one in half, but it's a perfect size for a tablecloth. Last bit of fabric is going down this end, and this cushion cover was just £1 from a charity shop. Just popped a pad in and way, perfect colours, particularly next to the hydrangea tree. Now all the furniture and the fabrics are in position, I can stand back and see exactly how I want to accessorise. Now I want to bring in some brighter colours, a bit like this throw. I want some pops of colour, maybe some on this table and elsewhere. I found these little plants at my local supermarket a few months ago, just £4 each, and I thought, oh hello, we're bound to be able to do something with you. So I've had them just in the courtyard, in amongst the hydrangeas, kept them watered, then decided to pot them on because they were starting to grow. And to pot on, I just use ordinary compost. I don't use anything particularly special, and they seem to grow very well in it. Now, I had been wondering, what am I going to put them in order to display them? When I was at auction on the last episode, you saw me get this job lot of brand new pots. Yes, I know this is not my normal style, but I thought, oh, look at those green ones. They're really zingy. Could I make those work with my normal kind of rustic scheme? Anyway, I thought, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. Shall we just see if we can slide one in? No, the pots were too big. But by which time I'd got it into my head that I was going to use them. So I just repotted them into the green pots. And feeding, I use what I use on everything in the garden, which is the Miracle Grow. Coffee table styling now. Oh, I love a bit of coffee table styling. This huge candle was a Home Bargains find for just $14.99. And I'm thinking when I've used it through the summer, I'm then going to dark wax it and use it as an occasional bowl. This was a find from a charity shop last summer, and I used the olive paint just to change the colour slightly. Now, what to put in the jug? Well, of course, it's got to be those 3 remaining hydrangeas. I love to repeat materials, and I needed to pull some of the hydrangeas down to the other end of the veranda for balance. Over to the table now, and again it's going to be about repeating materials, pulling a scheme through, trying to create that cohesive look. Now, normally when I'm doing anything down the middle, I've got my tape measure out. I'm trying to wing it here, but no, I didn't get it right first time. So I've just got to keep having a little fiddle. Oh, just a quick little bit of housekeeping. If you're enjoying this, please do remember to hit that thumbs up button. Check to see if you subscribed as well and turn notifications on. If you're watching this in the first 7 days and you're really enjoying it, then please do give me a hype. Now, these little jugs were free. They were in a shop and haul video that I did, first one of the year down in Cornwall. Now, I think we need to go down to the field and find something to put in them. Let's see if Bertie and Bear have any suggestions. Well, you two have been in the stream. Hair and makeup boys, you're not going on my fabrics till you're dry. But they did find me some lovely wild garlic. It's wonderful this time of year. It just runs rampant across the property and the scent is delicious. Now, let's move over to the bookcase. And I have a hankering to use Hamper baskets. Now, last year I had a great haul from auction. I also find them in charity shops and I want to make bold statements. Again, remember we're trying to balance out that 8-foot hydrangea tree. So I'm just going to run picnic baskets, hamper baskets all the way down. Now over to the shelf with the mirror and to the console table. Again, I want to keep it really quite bold. This is a faux yucca. I found these in Home Bargains, 19.99. I did mention them to you last episode. That's when we brought 3 into the kitchen. These are nearly 4 feet tall and they are weather and UV resistant, evidently. We don't find a lot of good faux in this country for a reasonable price. If you want the really good stuff, you are paying an absolute fortune. I was really impressed with this. Just the quality is so good, so realistic. Obviously, the plant pot, the base is pants, but I'm going to show you a very quick way to uplift. I've got my Hessian material out, which this roll I ordered off Amazon, so I will drop that link below. And it's a really simple way just to elevate a pot. I've got some twine because that is my style, and I am literally just going to wrap the pot in the Hessian, tighten it all together with the twine, fray the edges. You could do this with any material that coordinates with your decor. Step stools are out as I am somewhat vertically challenged. I'm just moving those leaves slightly away from the wall just so it balances nicely. They're actually really quite heavy, so they're perfectly safe up there. These do sometimes come up on Amazon, so I will drop a link below. Now we need to do something with this little basket. It does actually have a lid. It is a container. Now I found these giant cosmos in the range when I was buying the blankets. Couldn't believe they were just £2.49 a stem. They're just so light and frothy and really well made. And as always, when you're arranging, try and make them come at different angles. Have some drooping. It looks much more realistic. So before we do our beautiful closing images, let's remind ourselves of what it looked like before. Yes, it was very grubby. Living in a white house is wonderful. It makes me happy every day. It makes me smile every day. But it does take work. Even the cottage, which is a relatively new building, I only did this a few years ago, gets this weird kind of black appearing on it. It cleans off beautifully. We've had all sorts of experts look at it and we have no idea what this is. So if you have any ideas, can you please let me know? Now, next episode, we are going to be decorating the veranda. We're also going to come onto the outdoor kitchen and into the kitchen courtyard. So lots of interesting stuff going on. We did have to pull all the furniture off. There's the sofa sat behind the tree and there's the table over by the hedge because my lovely boys from Transparency Cleaning come in once a year and they blitz the place. They do an amazing job. They clean all the weatherboarding on the cottage, on the main house. They clear out all the guttering and then they use purified water on all of the windows. That then leaves me free to start the painting. So I use this super deck on all of the woodwork. When it comes to the veranda floor, I use the masonry paint that you saw me using a little bit of it on the pot. One coat of that on the brickwork on the floor just transforms it. And the grey brickwork, I have this weather shield mixed up in a RAL 7042. And after a week of cleaning and painting, I end up with a veranda I can decorate for spring, summer.